ensuite les concurrents rentrer, changer de pilote et puis repartir pour un tour supplémentaire. On vous rappelle que les équipes
seulement qui vont donc pouvoir gérer l'équification et la course. Et on pourrait imaginer effectivement un pilote qui, après avoir commis une erreur, vient chausser les pneus et repart directement. Ce sera pour les grands et les enfants, des jeux gonflables, ça c'est plutôt pour les enfants, et puis on a également des tyroliennes, on a des expositions de voitures, on a une nacelle, on a du catering, des merchandising, et puis attention, c'est nouveau, ça vient de sortir, si on peut dire, l'attente du championnat du monde d'endurance, avec de quoi vous plonger dans l'ambiance véritablement. Des simulateurs, de conduite bien évidemment, il y a un pit stop challenge en réalité virtuelle, j'ai eu l'occasion de l'essayer tout à l'heure, ça demande un petit peu d'adresse et un peu d'entraînement, mais c'est un beau défi à relever, de changer à aussi que possible. Vous avez également la possibilité de faire des photos, il y a la possibilité grâce à l'application web aussi de faire des photos avec les pilotes qui sont là. Bon, ils ne sont pas là en vrai, malheureusement, ce sera pour demain durant la pitwalk et la séance de demain. En attendant, vous pouvez faire des photos aux côtés des concurrents, bien évidemment. Il y a un dessinateur de ski, vous avez également un cinématographique, il y a deux expériences à vivre dans ce cinématographique. Il y a 3 cours sur 24 ans. Est-ce que c'est impressionnant également à avoir une charte LP1 et puis il y a
qualifying, and the qualifying times from 2 drivers per car, whether you have 2 or 3, will be aggregated to produce the grid for Saturday's race. Hello everybody, welcome to Super Season. I'm Martin Haven, your voice for the championship, for good, bad or indifferent. Alongside me, the man who talks more sense than many, Alan McNish. Alan, fabulous weather conditions. Track temperature being shown to us as 24 degrees. I was chatting to a tyre man down at Aston Martin coming up here. It was 29 behind the garage, so very different from what they've experienced so far, which might have something to play in this equation as well.
Well, first of all, it's fantastic to actually be back at the circuit and be ready to rock and roll, and that's the same for all the teams up and down the pit lane, as well as all of us fans. But the circuit is bathed in sunshine. However, there's been quite a cold wind, and the Spa is accustomed to that, but it will definitely make a little bit of an effect this afternoon with hotter temperatures.
Well, this is our Super Season. We start here at Spa. Next race will be the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2018, then Silverstone, Fuji and Shanghai for the rest of 2018. We then go to the 1,000 miles of Sebring in March before the 12 hours, back to Spa and back to Le Mans. And the whole point of Super Season is that we will end here and from now on with Le Mans being the championship finale, the jewel in the crown. And that is why we're now into a season and a little bit over the next 18 months. Well, air temperature 17, track 23. I have to say, I think it's probably edging up towards 10 degrees hotter than that. Little breeze, but not much. It's sweltering in the commentary booth. It's going to be very hot in the cars too for race day tomorrow. Forecast is good for that as well. So it is going to be physically as tricky as it is normally in terms of pace.
Yeah, and the circuit pretty tricky in its own right, as we've got a nice low camera shot here coming down towards the Blanchimont section of circuit. But it's a fantastic track. It's got all the characteristics that it had when it first arrived on the circuit. 3 main sections. The first sector in green that leads up towards Les Combes, absolutely flat out from La Source Hairpin up towards Les Combes, the fastest speeds at the top of the hill there. Then the middle sector, sector 2, and that's where you see the difference in car balance. If someone's got a good feel on the car and also confidence as a driver, they can make time there. And then the flat out section coming back through Blanchimont that we started the lap part with into the bus stop chicane.
Historically, the Spa circuit, like Le Mans, was a public road, closed for weekends when it was being used for racing. Now it is a permanently closed racing facility, and that's allowed them to significantly upgrade the surfaces. Sam Bird in the background there with Davide Rigon closer to us. In the A, of course, a Ferrari garage, GTE Pro Class cars. There, Ferrari, a development of last year's car, as is Porsche's 911, as is the Ford GT. The 2 brand new cars on the grid. The Aston Martin Vantage looks not too far distant from last year's car, but I'm sure somebody there will tell us precisely how few components carry over. It's got a much sharper edged Ford GT Ferrari 488 kind of look to it, and we've also got BMW's new M8, which replaces the slightly disappointing M6 as their GTE weapon of choice.
Well, this is one of the big talking points, actually, especially we're going to see it for qualifying for the first time, exactly who's got what, because up till now we've seen it at the Paul Ricard test, and there is the BMW you mentioned, and you get a bit of a flavour, but ultimately when qualifying starts, that's when you know the performances. Right now I would have said that the 2 newcomers in terms of Aston Martin and BMW probably learning a little bit about their cars, whereas Ferrari, even though it's an update, they understand it well, and Ford and Porsche are pretty well sorted right now. So I think that reality here, it'll come down to the 3 protagonists I spoke about. However, I wouldn't discount the BMW. It was second fastest in free practice this morning.
Yeah, well, that was the one that worked properly. The 81 car, Martin Tomczyk and Nicky Katzberg's car, really didn't go very quickly, had brake problems. Here are front runners in the GTE AM class with the orange backing to the numbers, and these are Pro-Am driver lineups, 77 and 88, a pair of Dempsey Proton Porsches, and the rule here is that you're not allowed to use a brand new car. It has to be at least a season old. So now for the first time they've got the brand new 911 as it was last year as their weapon of choice, and that speed is showing. Well, they were the 77 car fastest with the end of the 3rd free practice. The Gulf Porsche as well, Mike Wainwright, Ben Barker, the lineup there with Andrew Davidson joining them. And those guys will go, Alex Davison, those guys will go to Le Mans, where Gulf will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first Gulf win at Le Mans. TF Sports, Tom Ferrier, former British F3 driver, who is running the team. And this is a car and a team, in fact, that have moved up from British GT to Michelin Le Mans Cup that they won 2 seasons ago, European Le Mans Series runners-up last year, and now into Super Season at the World Championship level. So following that ladder of progression, their ambition clearly was always to get to the top of the tree, race a bit against the very best at Le Mans, and that's how you get there. Clearwater Racing's Ferrari, and their familiar colours from last year. Wang Sung Mok, Keiichi Sawa, joined by Matt Griffin. And one of the 2 team Porsches. This is the Pro Class, or the Pro Class cars. Richard Leitz and Jimmy Bruni in one, and Michael Christensen and Kevin Estre in the others, all very fully fledged Porsche drivers. Jimmy Bruni, most recently and historically in World Endurance, a Ferrari driver of quite some renown, but swapped to Porsche last year. And the terms of that deal were that he wasn't allowed to race in the World Endurance Championship last year. He raced in IMSA, but this year he is back. And the 2 Aston Martins, 95, the Dane train, as you like, which has got Marco Sorensen, Nicky Thiem, and honorary Dane Darren Turner. And the other car, 97, Alex Lynn, Maxime Martin, and Johnny Adam. And of those, only Alex Lynn is not also a regular in Aston Martins in the British GT Championship. All the other 5 factory drivers are the pros in 5 different Pro-Am lineups in GT3 and British GT. So Alex Lynn, like Sam Bird and a number of others, racing in Formula E on their non-WEC weekends. And in fact, one of BMW's driver lineups is a pairing that knows each other very well from Formula E, the Andretti BMW duo in the 81 BMW, in 82 BMW, Tom Blomqvist and Antonio Felix da Costa, and that was the car that went second quickest in the final free practice.
Yeah, but there they need to race against each other, and it's here it's a case of working together. But right now we've got a minute to go before or a minute and 20 seconds before, and you heard an engine firing up there before the first part of qualifying, which is going to be for the GTE Pro and the GTE AMS only. So the LMPs are going to come later, but it's a case of now building up for it. A lot of gusty wind there, and that affects the circuit quite a bit, especially here we're at Les Combes, which is the highest part of the circuit. And Louise Beckett and I went out onto the track yesterday to have a little look at it, because this is it's a technical section, but it's also a very good overtaking opportunity. But it's 100 meters higher than it is at the bottom of the pit area, and that means it gets gusts of wind and the car gets blown around quite a bit up here.
Well, the wind will be coming over your left-hand shoulder as you get onto the braking area, your right-hand shoulder as you get onto the braking area at Les Combes, so hopefully you'll be relatively sheltered by the trees.
Yeah, but you hit it when you come out through the exit, turn 8, then it pushes the front of the car wide, and that's where you start to see the lap time slipping away down through the middle section of the circuit.
So tyres in the tyre blankets, in the tyre ovens, keeping them as close to operating temperature as possible. On board with James Collado, the reigning world champion in GTE Pro.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is green for the first qualifying session of the season. Again, remind drivers to respect track limits, please.
The voice of Eduardo Freitas, the race director. You'll hear him when things go squirrely, and with a little bit of encouragement to try and ensure that they don't. And there's the view behind the big grandstand here at Spa-Francorchamps. First car out on track, 67 Chip Ganassi Ford of Andy Prio MBE. He shares with Harry Tinknell. 3 driver lineups in both Fords here because they're gearing up their Le Mans crew, and joining them, Tony Kanaan, who last raced back in 1993 here at Spa in GM Lotus Euro Series. So reacquainting himself with a circuit that's really no different, but actually slightly is no different. And the other car, Stefan Mucker, Ollie Pla and Billy Johnson. Most of the GT cars do have 3 driver lineups.
One thing about this circuit, everybody's going out early. Normally we see on, I would have said, a shorter track that people will wait a little bit. However, because it's such a long track and you've got 2-minute laps, by the time you do an out lap, by the time you do a timed lap and then an in lap, you've already done nearly 7 minutes. And so therefore, with the switch over to drivers and the average of 2 drivers, you have to actually get out onto track quickly. The risk is that you're actually out and maybe having to do an extra one, and the tyres are really only at their best for 1 lap.
Well, you can hear the 2 voices of myself and Alan in the booth. One of the regular voices and faces you'll hear from the championship is our pit lane reporter, Louise Beckett. Louise, down at BMW, and that car had brake issues this morning. What do you know?
Well, when I was speaking to the guys in between sessions, they didn't seem overly happy, the 2 drivers didn't seem overly happy that everything was sorted, but the 81 BMW has just gone out.
Okie dokie, the only way, thank you very much, the only way, Alan, really, of knowing that everything works is to take it out on track. You can't do it sitting in the garage.
Yeah, it depends what the problem was, but with the brake system there, and they changed the calipers, and that looked to be better because the car was still running. However, if it wasn't giving the feel and feedback to the driver that ultimately he wants, then yeah, you're exactly right, because it's when you get heat into the systems that you tend to find these little issues start, and you do need confidence, and you definitely need confidence on the brakes here because it's such a high-speed track, and you need to be able to attack the pedal, especially like down into this hairpin, the Brussels hairpin, because it's so easy as you're starting to turn in to unload that inside wheel, and if you snatch a front brake there, you run wide, you damage the tyre, and also you lose your lap time.
Well, so what he'll be doing now, as well as trying to maintain temperature in the tyres and get a little feel for where the grip level is to try and make sure that all of that pedal response is there, and talk to the team. I'm sure he's chatting on the radio as well. When he got up to Les Combes the first time, and down here the pedal will have been used. He's still got hot brakes as he gets down here into Piff Paff, or Campus, I think it's now known. Piff Paff flip-flop, basically. Zigzag as they go right and then left, continuing to pour on speed down the hill. It's a little right-hander. And then at the lowest point on the circuit here, this is Stavelot. And then climbing the hill all the way here, pretty much hard on the throttle. Let's see, he has to have a bit of a lift.
No, he's just warming up the brakes there, Martin. He's just making sure he gets the correct temperature into... He's not pushed hard to take the tyre life out, but he needs to make sure his front brakes and also his front tyres are up to the correct temperature and pressure. This is preparation. The other thing is he's looking at the cars ahead. You see cars that are on the lap. He doesn't want to catch them or be held up by them on the flying lap.
So driver 1 is currently in the car, driver 2 getting ready to go out. You see Harry Tinkle there with the headset on, listening to the feedback on the radio. It's exactly what's happening here at BMW as well. So out for their first laps, Andy Priault, first man out of the pits, the other Ford, Ollie Pla. In the AF Corsa Ferraris, James Collado and Davide Rigon go out first. Martin Tomczyk and Tom Blomqvist in the BMWs doing the first lap. Richard Leeds and Michael Christensen in the Porsches, and in the 2 Aston Martins in the Pro class, Marco Sorensen and Alex Lynn.
Well, that lap time there from Andy Priault's first out in that car, a 12.936, was the fastest lap of the weekend so far for them, and a significantly quicker lap than that was able to be done last year. 2 seconds faster than the fastest car in GTE Pro in 2017. So that's a gauntlet laid down, I would say, definitely by the Ford Chip Ganassi team and Priault.
Always nice to have a new car and a new development, but actually for a racing driver it's also really nice to really understand your car, know how to work with it, know how to lean on it and where to get the best out of it.
It certainly is, and he was able to do it. Looking at the lap times coming up, nobody's quite able to match them in that first sector at the moment, but there's not many people actually done a full timed lap in GTE Pro.
Now, what they will be looking at in the stewards' room is who is obeying track limits and who isn't. You just saw the BMW running wide as he came out of the Les Combes complex, and car number 70 having a lap deleted, and that is the MR Racing car of Olivier Beretta. So he has eased over the white line.
It's actually 54 that lap 2 as well, and that's that is actually the spirit of the race with Francesco Castellacci at the wheel, and that's track limits at the top of the hill. And that's a really, really tough thing because you can't afford to be doing extra laps on those tyres. You only get 4 sets plus 2 additional spare tyres, so a total of 18 tyres for qualifying in the whole of the 6-hour race.
Yeah. And so every lap you put on them here not only makes your teammate a little slower in his qualifying, but also means that they've done more laps as you go into the race. So deletion there, Francesco Castellacci's lap. But Olivier Beretta's may also be under investigation. Here we're looking at the 91 Porsche, this car being driven by Richard Leeds. That's currently yet to set a quick time.
Yeah, but his teammate in the 92 car, driven by Christensen's, popped himself up into 2nd place. It's quite a bit different, but Prio's gone even quicker now in a 2 minutes 12.604, so Prio very, very quick in that Ford.
Fastest free practice lap for a Ford, which was that car, was a 2 minutes 13.6. We're now down to a 2 minutes 12.6 in qualifying. So lighter fuel load, fresh tyres, and a driver who's just had lunch and is full of aggression. So Andy Prio doing his bit. So we've got Ford, Porsche, BMW with the 82 car, lap from Tom Blomqvist. You just saw one of the cars heading into the garage. I think that was possibly the Dempsey Proton Porsche in a garage at the moment. Marco Sorensen. It was the 2nd GTE AM car, 77 Porsche in, with Matt Campbell, the Aussie, having done his lap. Dempsey Proton fastest and 2nd in GTE AM, with Gulf Racing's Porsche in 3rd in GTE AM. Car 82. The BMW loses his 2nd quick lap, and car 61 also loses his 2nd quick lap, and that's Clearwater Racing's Wengson Mock. Prio is now down to 2nd as Olivier Pla has gone fastest for Ford in the 66 car, 2 minutes 12.4.
And the 82 BMW has popped itself up into 5th place as the Christensen, who we said there was in 3rd, up to 4th because of Pla's time, now into the pits for the driver change.
But BMW lost a lap from the 82 car, so Blomqvist was 2nd quickest, but that lap's been deleted, so he's dropped down to 5th position. And don't forget, the other driver then has to go out and set at least, hopefully, a matching lap. 95 Aston Martin in the pits. Marco Sorensen handing over to either Nicky Thiem or Darren Turner. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you choose, really. They're as good as each other. But Louise Beckett reporting from the pits that they've swapped the tyres from side to side because, Alan, it's the left side that does the work, particularly the left front on that one lap.
Yes, it is. It's the left front that drops off through the lap, and through the stint, it's also the left rear. And so, therefore, they don't want to use a complete new set. They don't want to use even a spare set because of the numbers we talked about for the race. So switching it left to right just takes a little bit of that load that was unused on the right and puts it onto the left.
A little bit of wastegate chatter from the 51 Ferrari of James Collado. Here's the 67 Ford. And Louise down in the pit lane. Looks as though Ford are swapping left to right.
Yeah, they are. I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen this before. Maybe I've just not been there at the time. But yes, both the 95 and now the 67 Ford have also done it.
I think the tyre strategies are obviously getting a little bit more cute, and they have done it in the past, but it's not been necessarily something we've seen too much. We've generally just seen the driver jumping in, but here you put so much extra load and energy into those left side tyres, and it means that if you just put one extra lap onto it, it hurts it quite a bit.
For spotter fans, by the way, the Aston Martin with the orange highlights is the Danes, Sorensen, Thiem and Darren Turner, and the one with green highlights, the mirrors around the nostrils, Alex Lynn, Maxime Martin and Johnny Adams' 97 car. So there are subtle ways of spotting these. The green highlights on the Ford means it's the 66 car, and the blue highlights mean it is the 67 car. So this is the car that Ollie Pla did the first run in. changing the tyres over.
A little bit surprised, to be honest, at the pace of the Ferraris, because they're nearly 2 seconds off the time that Fords have been able to do. And in that respect, it's not quite where I expected them to be.
Davide Rigon comes back in 71 to the AF Corsa garage, with Sam Bird waiting to jump in. Door slammed on the BMW by, it was Tom Blomqvist, for Antonio Felix da Costa. As you said, Al, they race against each other in Formula E, but they are in the same pit garage, so they're used to sharing the data. So there is that kind of help as well.
Yeah.
And here is our Spirit of Race Ferrari, Giancarlo Fisichella, back at the wheel of the car.
Well, that's a car that had the time disallowed, if we remember, by Castellacci at the beginning for track limits up at the top of Radiant Eau Rouge, running wide there, and so therefore it's only Fisichella that's actually got a lap time on the board. They'll have to switch back to Francesco Castellacci at some point for him to do a lap, but with 13 minutes they've still got the time to be able to achieve it, but it's not an ideal race preparation.
Number 70 MR Racing Ferrari in the AM class. Olivier Beretta did the first laps, and this is Motoaki Ishikawa from Japan, a 54-year-old racer who has really come back to racing in the last 2 or 3 seasons. And the third driver in that car is a name you'll know well, Edward Cheever III. If I say Eddie Cheever, he's the dad, so Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever was Eddie Cheever Jr., the Eddie Cheever that we know, Al, but this is Eddie Cheever III.
Yeah, and Eddie Cheever, a man that a lot of people know, but the Cheevers as a family. However, the Tinknells as a family is somebody that's not necessarily known in motorsport, but Harry Tinknell, who's now piloting this 67 car, that's currently in second place behind his teammate. That's Andy Prio, with Tony Kanaan on the right-hand side. That's the teammates. Now, this is the first of the second drivers in the car. Now, we heard from Louise that they had switched the tyres left to right, and so now it's not a fresh set of tyres. I wouldn't expect it to be a lap time that is actually faster than his teammate was able to do, but it's the average of the two of them, and Tinknell does know how to get this car moving, and right now coming down through the left-hander after the Brussels corner is a very, very important part, because this is the area of the circuit that tyre life and tyre management, as he kicks up a bit of dust there, is important.
First lap was 2:12.604 from Andy Prio. We'll wait to see what Harry Tinknell could produce. Part of this, of course, is you perhaps have to push the car a little harder than your teammate did to try and match that pace. But the other is you've got to be clean. You can't give laps away. And that's the real key here with the pro drivers, is keeping that performance legal and above board. So you've got to have at least 2 wheels inside the white line at any time. You're allowed to have a couple drifting out wide, but all 4 over the white line, and suddenly all of that hard work is to no avail.
Well, Tinknell's certainly had a clean lap, as in terms of traffic. There's a bit of traffic up ahead as others are going to be squabbling for it. That was definitely their strategy in this car, get out early and try and get 2 clean laps on the board. It was a second lap that was actually the quickest one for Prio, and this is the last corner, accelerating out here. The traction control system and that Ford GT working like mad as he tries to put the power down to cross the line. It's a 2:13.290, so 0.6 of a second difference in the 2 drivers, but as an average, then that will put them into quite a nice place. So let's see what the rest do, but that's the gauntlet again laid down.
We're looking at the 92 Porsche on track. Louise, down in the pit lane, you've got news of the 91 car.
Yes, when they went out first of all for their first run, they had a new set on, and they are the only ones of the front runners that have just come in, done a driver change and put another new set on.
Okay, so they're going to put another couple of laps on a brand new set of tyres, and that perhaps will give Jimmy Bruni a shot at getting on the front row of the GTE Pro class. Currently Ford first and second, and the gap difference was 0.18 of a second between the 2 cars on average. So Harry Tinknell has to go basically 0.2 of a second quicker than Stefan Mucker in the 66 car to reverse that performance. Some great slow-mo views of the car, Al, and shows how hard you have to rock over the curbs.
You've got to kick on over the curbs, no question. This is the, I think, the pole sitting car, the 66. It should be about to start his lap. Coming into the source. Front of the car looked nice there as he threw the front in. It responded and went into it quite sweetly.
Now, you just saw the graphic there for 66, showing that it had gone red at the end, plus 0.15. So on average, with that first flying lap of Stefan Mucker, 67 on average is now quicker, and 66 has dropped down. So Harry Tinknell up behind the 98 AM Aston Martin, could have done with not catching it right there. Who's in 98 at the moment? Yeah, why can't I see it? It's Paul Dalla Lana, the Canadian. And Pedro Lamy did the first run in that car. In the Pro-Am class in GTE Am, the gentleman driver, the lowest rated in terms of bronze, silver, gold, platinum, whatever, must do part of the qualifying. So you can't just chuck in 2 pros and go, yeah, we're fine. Well, if 91 had fresh tyres, 92 likely did as well. Jimmy Bruni's put 91 second in GTE Pro on average, ahead of Stefan Mucker in the 66 Ford. They've probably got a lap each to do. 92 with Kevin Estre, who again is a pretty mean peddler of a Porsche. Let's see where he ends up. They're currently in 4th place. And of course, over the course of 6 hours, being 3rd on the grid or 4th on the grid in your class possibly doesn't mean an awful lot. 9800s behind the gap for the 66 Ford, and 1.2 seconds behind the average gap for the 92 Porsche. Came across the line 0.405 behind, so...
This is the 66 that's in 3rd, was quickest after the first section, gone through the middle sector, and not quite sure where this is going to end up for them, actually. It was quite a chunk slower on the last lap.
Well, his second sector wasn't as quick as Alessandro Pierguidi in the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. So well, let's see where they end up.
On average, though, I've got to say he's only 800ths off pole position, so it's not exactly too far away, but it's the wrong side of pole position for what he wants.
Yeah. 91 Porsche. This car is currently in 2nd place. 26 thousandths is the gap back to Stefan Mucker.
Sorry to stop you talking there, Martin. I just wanted to hear through that right-hander, which is so important to have a clean run and to hear that he's flat out, but also the minimum scrub possible as he comes through, because all this section back towards the bus stop chicane is absolutely flat out.
Well, the battle for pole seems to be Porsche versus Ford. And then the AF Corsa Ferrari, BMW and Aston Martin, both with newer cars, are at least a second away, and in the case of BMW and Aston Martin, 2 seconds away from where they would like to be. Indeed, the 95 Aston Martin at the bottom of the tree has pitted with Nicky Thiem at the wheel. It's 3 seconds off pole. Dempsey Poton, fastest in the AM class. Christian Reed driving this, with Father Gerald, has been racing in GT racing since the 90s.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it's close there because, you know, they're only a few hundreds ahead of Paul Dalla Lana in the Aston Martin, and this is a new car, as you mentioned, and the Aston is quite an old car, long in the tooth, very well understood, very well known, very quick, no questions about it. But you've got the old and the new, and separated just by hundreds.
And that Aston will, this is its last year, basically, of racing, because next year, the current brand new Vantage will be available for GTE AM. And by next year, I mean after Le Mans 2019, when we get into the next season of FIA WEC. At least I think I do. I'm not sure if it's available from January on. That might be interesting, a change of car midway through. Well, 98 ran a little wide. 91, Porsche has lost a lap due to track limits at turn 4. That's Rédillon, which is the brow left-hander as you climb out of Eau Rouge.
Kevin Estre's teammate jumping out, so that's the two Fords are in the pits, and I'd have said done and dusted with 3.5 minutes to go. It was this car that got pinged for track limits at the top of the hill. This is another area, be careful, just coming out there, but Jimmy Bruni well inside the white lines at that particular point, but they're only hundredths off pole position, so they'll want to get it if they can, but he's taken another lap out of the tyre, as we said.
Hear the noise of an Aston Martin somewhere. Here's the final run to the line with the Porsche.
Now this is him slowing down, preparing. So he's taking it wide. This is not your natural line. Gets on the throttle to make sure he's got maximum traction to start the lap. Even though it's only a few hundred meters run towards La Source, you want to start the lap because it's quite a strong uphill in towards La Source.
Well, it's the same as the sprinter. You come out of the blocks because you want your first step to be as powerful as possible. If you do a standing start, it's not going to be the same. So, yeah, having the run-up is so critical. Starting the lap as quickly as you can means that you're going to be everywhere else a little quicker. Team Project 1, Porsche 911, and this 56 car with Jörg Bergmeister returning to World Endurance Racing. And they have just gone up to 3rd place in the AM class with the tall German. And car 56, lap 4, deleted for abusing track limits.
Well, while you've been looking at that, I've been looking at the timing screens, and this car's only a tenth and a bit off at the first sector, as now he drops down through the Brussels hairpin, and then this next left-hander, which is, you try to let the car float through there, and he was right on the limits of the circuit. Now Pouhon, which I think is one of the most beautiful and difficult corners on the Spa track.
Chasing him, the 82 BMW. Too far behind him on the road. Another lap deleted. That's for the Spirit of Race Ferrari. Thomas Floor losing the 8th lap of that car, so he'll have to go for yet another one. They and Clearwater Racing with the Ferrari now being driven by Matt Griffin. Both have lost laps and are dropping down towards the tail of the AM class. So Gulf Racing and Dempsey Proton's 88 car have both pitted. They've done their qualifying runs. This is not going ahead the way that they want for the 91 Porsche. Currently 3rd. So it's Ford, Porsche at the moment in the GTE Pro class.
The middle sector is a bit off, and that's where you take the tyre life out of it. And so that extra lap in the middle sector is the thing that's going to hurt these guys. In fact, he's aborted it because he wasn't going to be able to go quicker. And so Jimmy Bruni's into the pits, sitting in 3rd place. Now BMW crossing the line.
So the BMW
goes up to 5th.
Yeah, Antonio Felix da Costa and Harry Tincknell, Tony Kanaan in the middle, and Andy Priaulx. See, there's not many shots you get where Andy Priaulx looks tall. Although, if Louise Beckett gets in there, then suddenly everybody looks like a giant. She doesn't have her wedgie heels on today, so gonna need to find a stepladder or something. Who else is still on a lap? Well, Antonio Felix da Costa's just finished his, so all the other pro cars are in the garage. And with 4 seconds to go, anybody who crosses the line now gets one more shot. But the checkered flag is out, and the 67 Ford has the GTE Pro class pole for the first race of Super Season.
And the championship lead.
And the championship lead, and that's a very good point. There's a racing driver thinking.
It's the points for pole position. However, there's still, as you see the checkered flag out now, they are not, all of the pro cars have done their laps, and it's going to be Andy Priaulx in the 67 car, the first man out, and Louise Beckett is going to be down in the pitch. She mentioned that she was going to be there. Maybe she's got something to say with Andy.
Well, Andy Priaulx, that was a superb start to a super season.
Yeah, it was a super start to a super season, definitely. I mean, obviously had a good first banker lap, and Harry did a great lap on the used tyre. So really super happy with the car, and yeah, I mean, it's great to start from the front. 6 hours tomorrow, so it's a big race, but you know, the Porsche looked really strong. Obviously our teammates in 66 were strong, so I think this year the GT Pro class is going to be a really tough battle, so very nice to get the first one in the bag.
I'll let you go and have your photo taken.
Cheers, guys.
Well, on the average of the lap times, the 67 Ford was 83 thousandths ahead of the 66 Ford, and 4 thousandths slower than that was the best of the Porsches, 87 thousandths off pole. So the gaps conceivably could be almost unmeasurable between them in the race, because obviously that's one relatively clear qualifying lap. The moment you get into traffic, and that'll be lap 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even, of the 6 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, then all bets are off. That ultimate qualifying edge goes away. And so basically we could say that Ford and BMW are absolutely level. Behind them, one Ford and Porsche, one BMW getting in there just a second away, but then it's a further half second back to the better of the Ferraris, another half second back to 71, and then another few hundreds away, the Aston Martins and the BMWs. Dempsey Proton looking strong with the 77 and the 88 cars. The 98 Aston never to be counted out, but the Gulf Racing Porsches made a step forward. Let's hear now from Khaled Al-Khabaisi down at Dempsey Proton.
Well, Khaled, that was a good start for you. How was it?
It was amazing to be driving back here in the championship in Spa. Start to a super season. It's really great to be here. We're happy. The car is great. Porsche did a great job with the new car. Our teammates got pole position, so it's an amazing job for them. It was very tight with the top 4 cars. Well, yeah, we look to a great race, 6 hours. It's going to be exciting.
Thanks very much.
There's no question it is going to be exciting. 19 cars in the GT categories, and the Pro class featuring Ford, Porsche, BMW, Ferrari and Aston Martin. So plenty to conjure with. And one of the great deals about the AM and the Pro class is the quality of the driver lineup. Alan, it's, you know, one of the hallmarks of the World Endurance Championship is not just the cars you got to fight against, it's the drivers driving them as well.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and there's very, very strong lineups all through the particular championship, especially this year. And when you get the likes of, you mentioned Tony Kanaan coming in as a super sub and the third driver, then it just tells you where it is. Yeah. But it was superb to see that we've got such a competitive championship coming up for us in both the AM and also in the Pro.
So 19 GT cars have been out on circuit, and now it is time to send out our prototypes. Car 86 being reported to the stewards for speeding in the pit lane, and that's the Gulf Racing UK car. Michael Wainwright brought it back in, so I'm not sure whether it was him or whoever did the first stint.
Yeah, unlikely to be a position penalty from qualifying. Maybe just mean that he's got a little bit less money in his wallet.
A few hundred euros, yeah, absolutely.
And the reason that they're very strict in qualifying as well is that there's quite a lot of people in that pit lane, purely from a safety perspective.
Yeah, it was ever thus in the old pit lane at Le Mans, and my knowledge of Le Mans goes back to when there was a wall separating the pit lane from the main straight, and that was not always the case either. Even then, the pit lane was a busy place. Certainly when I started working pit lane, it was long before speed limits came in. There you never turned your back on incoming traffic. We're seeing interesting combination here in the LMP1 category, LMP2 category, Labre competition with their Ligier chassis, a JSP 217, so the 17 version of the Ligier LMP2 car with a Gibson engine. Erwin Creed, Romano Ricci and Julien Canal, the leaders there. And the car that was fastest in FP3 in LMP1 was not a Toyota. The car in front of you was a Rebellion Rebellion's R13 chassis fitted with a Gibson engine, which is a development of the LMP2 V8. Luciani, Andre Lotterer and Bruno Senna. You see immediately, just read the top line of the entry sheet, and that's all you need to know about the quality of the entry here. Of course, the big news this year is the introduction of customer LMP1 cars. Now, let's hear from Toyota.
Just to give you a heads up, the GT cars went 1.3 seconds faster than the LP3 session. At this moment, track temperature is 29 degrees.
But Louise Beckett down in the pit lane just whinging on about how hot it is. Listen, it could be raining. You know, you need to be careful of what you complain about, don't you, sometimes?
I was just about to ask you if you knew what the track temperature was, but Toyota have answered it for me, and yeah, it feels like it down here.
Yeah, well, again, I said to a tyre engineer just before I came up, what's the temperature? And he said, oh, 29 and edging up. So, I mean, clear blue sky, that does it every time, doesn't it? The track absorbs the heat from the sun, and that can end up making tyre balance and car balance a little difficult to chase. If you ever watch NASCAR over a long race, cloud cover can wreck a good handling car or bring one in that's a bit errant, and exactly the same thing for a sports car. And Alan McNish, you know, of all the factors to chase, you think, really, how much can sunshine affect whether a car goes quickly or not? But it does.
Yeah, it also affects a little bit the amount of volume of air that goes into the engine, which allows it to breathe in the same way that we do when we're out running or whatever it is we're doing some sport. But yeah, what it usually does is it pushes the car into an understeer where the front of the car doesn't react quite as well as it should, especially on a new tyre, new qualifying. So you might want to think about a little bit of an adaptation to it. However, it's a tyre pressure adaptation, and here it's quite critical how you build up the tyre. We saw that in the last qualifying, where people at the end of their warming up lap were really pushing on the brake to make sure that they got the right balance between tyre pressure, tyre temperature and brake temperatures. All of that information, though, is fed back to the driver if he doesn't have it available to him on the steering wheel.
In the number 36 Alpine, ready for the first run, is the familiar helmet of Nico Lapierre, man who's been intimately involved with Alpine over the last few years. And rivals like G-Drive, TDS Racing, Dragon Speed, regular in LMP2 over the last few years in the European Le Mans Series, and last year they came to World Endurance. Jackie Chan Racing with 2 cars as well. Labour competition, we said, joining in here at Spa-Francorchamps. And the other new coming team is a name that Le Mans fans know previously, which is Racing Team Holland, or Racing Team Netherlands, which has been kind of revived with Jan Lammers and Frits van Aert, who is the boss of the Jumbo supermarket chain in the Netherlands and a keen racing driver. And Jan Lammers also in the team here, 61 years young, Jan Lammers. So always good to have that kind of experience in the car. Well, we're getting ready for the session to begin in a couple of minutes. You just saw Mike Conway in his Toyota.
Under 1 minute to start qualifying. We are under 1 minute to start qualifying.
Here now, cars starting up, going down to the end of the pit lane. Eduardo Freitas, the race director, just giving a little bit of advice. That means that they go down to the end of the pit lane. And the thing is, you can go down earlier and position yourself, but then you actually lose tyre temperature, and it gets that build-up that we're talking about. The Rebellion car is the first car that's there, and then I think the one behind it is that the Team Netherlands.
30 seconds to go green.
And then the Colossus is third out. Rebellion looking to take exactly the same performance advantage of a clean track and no traffic track that we saw the pole sitters in GTE Pro doing earlier on.
Well, the other thing, of course, that's happened over the free practice sessions is the track has rubbered in again.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is green. Pit exit is green. LMP qualifying has started. Track limits are to be obeyed at all times.
Race director Eduardo Freitas gets our 25-minute session underway, and as they bolt for freedom, the first 3 cars come out. That's the number 3 Rebellion with Thomas Laurent, their silver-rated driver in the car. Going out in the Bicollers Racing team, the silver and yellow machine, Ollie Webb, going out for Racing Team Netherlands, Gte Battle. So he and Frits van Aert will be doing the qualifying laps.
And it looked like in the rebellion there, we also had Bruno Senna that had his overalls on, and Gustavo Menezes as well. So chances are that you're going to see those guys out as the second driver coming through. At the moment, Thomas Laurent and Neil Yanni.
Dragon Speed with a dog in both fights. They've got an LMP2 and an LMP1 car. And a name you may not know from World Endurance, Henrik Hedman will go out in the number 10 car. He's the, quote, gentleman driver in their LMP1 machine and has been in European Le Mans Series action with them and Ben Hanley for the last couple of seasons. They're joined by Pietro Fittipaldi this weekend. And the other Dragon Speed car is a name that you will know no matter what your racing heritage. Venezuelan Pastor Maldonado. So great to see Maldonado back in a race car. May be wrong, but possibly the last non-Formula 1 race he did here at Spa, I think he might have ended up winning it in World Series by Renault. However, great to see the Venezuelan back, so he'll go out in the other Dragon Speed car as their first driver. Now, Toyota keeping their powder dry. They haven't budged. They have actually. No, they haven't yet. Mike Conway and Sebastian Buemi.
Not sure if that was which driver that was sitting in that car, to be honest.
It should be possibly Buemi, I think. We'll have to wait and see.
Wait till he goes out of the pits. However, qualifying lap on. Down the compression. Feel the rear of the car just hitting off the ground as you come across the top of the hill. Suddenly you see the openness. Now you're thinking, crikey, I hope that car ahead of me gets out of the way, because if I catch him on the next section of circuit, then my lap is done and dusted. Now coming up to the first sector though, braking hard and then going down, and it's going to be, yeah, he's caught him at the wrong point. Car didn't get out of the way. Yeah,
that was one of the two SMP cars, I think, that was in the way. On an outlap, Vitaly Petrov and Stefan Sarazen are in those. Bruno Senna's helmet is on. So he will go out and do the second stint in the number 1 Rebellion.
That's a little bit of team that could maybe have alerted that there's a car coming up. They've got a circuit map with all the cars that are going around it, and you can see how they're progressing, so every team knows where every car is on the track at any particular time, and it's just courteous to warn your driver that maybe somebody's coming up, especially if you've just came out of the pits.
Well, the number 3 Rebellion, that's a little further back as the number 1 car goes through pith path. Number 1 car has got the number 10 SMP car in front, and he uses all the car to sweep around, because neither of the SMP cars are going particularly quickly. And there is, now our GPS doesn't show that, but that's the other SMP car.
Yeah, but that's in the middle of the straight, and unless he can actually get it going again, or alternatively go backwards, and he's going very, very slowly, that's full walking speed, then it could be, so definitely a yellow.
And that is on the Kemmel Straight. Yellow flags are out, so any laps that you start now aren't going to be quick. And the 2 Rebellions come across the line. TVR on the nose is at the moment a sponsorship deal, the renewed TVR, their road car due later this year, designed by Gordon Murray and engined by Cosworth. But the hope is that TVR will return to racing. Red flag is out, because that car was going nowhere in a hurry. That's moving probably about as quick as I'll be running up there later.
The only car that actually did a lap, though, was Thomas Laurent in the number 3 Rebellion Racing. He needed 156.765, and that is about 4/10 quicker than they were able to run this morning.
Crikey.
So not the 1 second advantage that they had in the GTEs, but now all of these cars have got to come back to the pits at a maximum speed of 80 kilometers per hour. So those tyres are now getting pickup, so they get the rubbish that's already on the circuit, and the other thing is they lose all the tyre temperature. So for the next driver going out, it's not a very nice situation if he's going to have to run in those tyres.
Well, now, sitting in the pit lane on their thumbs might benefit Toyota, because they haven't put any heat cycle through the tyre. As you say, cars coming back. Thomas Laurent, though, of course, isn't going to be the fastest driver in the car, so their least fast driver has gone quicker than their fastest time in free practice.
Yeah, but he might be able to, you know, you pump out the fuel and go quicker and everything else. I wouldn't say Thomas Laurent is going to be slow.
No, absolutely not.
He did nearly win Le Mans at the age of 20 years old last year.
True.
So I think the kid will get it done without a question. But I think the thing now is, what do? Do you take a second set of tyres? Do you try and clean these tyres? How do you get it so your next driver going out has actually got something that is a decent sort of tyre to put a lap time into?
Chances are you're not going to have time to clean it, to take them off, take them out the back, clean them, heat them again. So I think you're into a second set of tyres immediately.
Yeah, when I meant clean it, I didn't mean physically clean it. I meant actually the driver doing a little bit of work on the in-lap to be able to get some of that pickup off it if he can.
Stefan Sarrazin, racer, rally driver. Hasn't done much rallycross. I think perhaps he could adapt himself very well to that.
I don't know, I've seen a bit of rallycross, not necessarily from Stefan, but over the course of the practice sessions with people getting it a little bit wrong, different points on the circuit.
Now, he was shown as being in the car that is currently stopped on circuit. So that was clearly not Sarrazin, it must have been his teammate, whoever was ready to go out. Sarrazin's helmet's got a bit of pink on it, hasn't it? Anyway, here is our G-Drive car. Jean-Eric Verne, who won the last Formula E race in Paris last weekend and is currently leading the championship with a remarkable run of form and good fortune as well. Louise Beckett in pit lane. Down with, is it feeding time at the zoo for the zebras?
It certainly is. This herd of zebras are all waiting for their number 1 and their number 3 rebellions to come in.
We should explain, shouldn't we?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. If people haven't seen yet.
Well, people haven't seen yet. It's only day 1 of the championship, so the rebellion race suits are black and white, sort of, zebra striped a bit, basically, aren't they?
A bit is an understatement. Animal print is definitely in this season, I can tell you that much.
Well, you and Kelly Manish, animal print is never out of fashion, is it?
Oh, dear.
Okie dokie, right. So, Gte Battle coming around in the Jumbo Racing Team Netherlands machine. That LMP2 car. One of a number of Dalaras in the field. Dalara with cars in the LMP1 category as well. A question from the pit lane. Yes, caller.
I haven't looked at the timing screen yet. What happens with the clock here? Has it stopped? Because this is not doing anyone any favours, is it?
Well, what has happened clearly is the clock has stopped, you're right, with the red flag out. What has happened clearly is Eduardo Freitas has been listening to the comments from the pit lane and thinks, well, if she thinks it's hot now, wait till she's had another 20 minutes standing around doing nothing. Yeah, time stops because nobody's going to get a pit lane, nobody's going to get a quick time in here. So everybody's going to head back. We get the flatbed up the Kemmel Straight. We load the dead car, and then that will leave the circuit at Les Combes, which is another half a kilometre further up the straight. So it'll be another 5 minutes or so, probably. Take a look at the front of the SMP racing car, the red, white and blue of the Russian Federation all over it, and also in the little LED lights in the headlights as well. It's got red and blue alongside on either side of the white headlights, and the red and the blue bits actually are a reversed B and an R. Well, Louise Beckett said she was doing nothing. Louise, that's not strictly true, is it?
No, you're so cheeky. I can tell you that there is a mixture of cars leaving tyres on, as they are, and others that have taken them off and putting them off to the warmers.
Okay, well, Al, because it's such a long lap here, maybe you do stand a chance of cleaning up a tyre that's come back slowly and got pickup on it.
But you don't necessarily get the correct and optimum way out of this, and if you're fighting for pole position, then it is definitely not the right way to do it. Now, this is Neil Yanni that's just gone straight down the end of the pit lane. He wants to be the first one out. on the other side of things, Thomas Laurent, who is the only person to have completed a lap time. He was fortunate just more than anything else, but it was part of their strategy to be the first out. Yeah. Then they're doing a driver change, and so they're automatically going straight over to their second driver.
Ooh. Craned in the SMP number 10 car, number 17 car, so we are unlikely to see that again. There's the B and the R. Very nice little bit of detail. Why have they done that? Because they can, because designers sometimes do that. And that's not one of the SMP cars, that is Dragon Speed's LMP1 car. And although when I talked to them, Henrik Hedman and Ben Hanley were in race suits and Pietro Fittipaldi wasn't, I wonder whether our timing screen shows, although Hedman was in the car originally, our timing screen shows Fittipaldi's name, but not sure that's entirely correct.
I think it resets as they come round to start their lap, so therefore I wouldn't necessarily take it as 100%.
Pietro Fittipaldi racing here and in Fuji because of other clashes. And there you see on the back, look, the Super Season calendar for idiots like me who can't remember 8 things in a row. You just read it off the back of the Dragon Speed car. So we go here, Spa, then we go to Le Mans, then we go to Silverstone, then we go to Fuji and Shanghai, then we go to Sebring, Spa and Le Mans. There you go, that's the one and only time I'll get them in the correct order, I imagine.
Hopefully you get them in the correct order when you're actually flying to the venues, well, Martin. Yeah. Otherwise it's going to be a bit tricky.
Don't. But, my travel arrangements are legion and many. For Rebellion Racing, you can see the red and black bodywork. And a little while ago you saw, I think it was Andre Lotto heading out to the pit wall. The sleeves of the race suits are very definitely zebra print. And as we said, TVR brought back from the place where old car manufacturers go to, the Elephant's Graveyard, and hopefully
information
return
to the pit lane. I think we may be able to go green within the next 20 seconds at 15:48.
It's going to be a quick turnaround, very quick go. Want to get the session up and running. I think everybody does, including race control.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is back to green again. Pit exit is back to green again. Car 17 will be delivered to the team in Parc Fermé after the session has finished.
Well, one thing we know for sure is that car 17 will not be having a run for pole. Neither driver will get a qualifying lap in. And obviously for a brand new chassis like the BR1, they will want to find out what let it down so that it doesn't let it down in the race, and it doesn't let its sister car down in the race either.
I think it's more than likely electronic, usually when it stops in the middle of a straight like that. It's an electronic situation. Toyota overtaking as it got up into Lake Com. Now this is only the warming up lap, and the reason that he's doing that is he wants to be in control of his lap. He wants to be in control of the fact of the way he builds his tyres, make sure his hybrid system is fully charged and the battery is up to maximum capacity, and not to be beholden to someone else, maybe just looking at a different sort of strategy there. And so now the Toyota will start to sort of take it a little bit more easy in this middle section. The reason for that, again, is this is where all the corners are, and this is where you put load into the tyre, but also take life out of the tyre. And from a pure qualifying point of view, Sebastian Buemi at the wheel, and he knows how to do it very well. You just need to get it to optimum. Doesn't need, sorry, that's Fernando Alonso at the wheel. Looked like Sebastian Buemi's helmet there.
Yeah, Alonso's helmet has definitely changed a lot, hasn't it? And maybe that's the kind of red and blue of Toyota reflected in that, because predominantly the yellow has vanished. Used to be lots of yellow and red Spanish colours on it.
Now through Blanchemont, bus stop to go, and then it'll be time to rock and roll.
Yeah. Well, Fernando Alonso, quite a different way of going qualifying from what he's used to. No Q1, Q2, Q3. You know, not that normally Q3 was much of a thing for him, but just a couple of flying laps to wring the best out of yourself, and still relatively unfamiliar machinery. I mean, he's not as well dialed into this car as most of the others will be in the field, or certainly his teammates will be, but...
See the rear car just bottoming as he came through, and the skid block rubbing against it, and the big puffs of dust coming up from that. He needs to be down somewhere near the sort of 32.6 as he comes into the first sector, 3/10 up on what they've been able to do this morning. So that's the fastest first sector of anybody so far.
Busy hands on the wheel, and the onboards show you how much the driver gets bounced around on the circuit when they're attacking the curb so hard.
A very short shift there as he came out the Brussels hairpin. Moved up gear early to keep the traction on the front and the rear wheels. Now to Pouhon.
Nice clear track in front of him. The next car in his way is at the bus stop.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of understeer in the car there as he turned into there at the apex. Wasn't quite as hard and as early on the power as maybe you'd like to, but managed to get up over the curb there.
But the new boy is having a pretty good opening foray.
53.0 is the second sector time you're looking at.
Behind him, the #1 Rebellion, then the #7 Toyota. So Toyota getting both their cars out at the front of the queue. Fastest car with 1 lap recorded. The #3 Rebellion is climbing the hill behind these guys. 4th car on the track. But across the line, 1.6 quicker than the #3 Rebellion. A 1:55.14. #1 car produces a 54.67 from the #7 car, Mike Conway. #1 car produces a 3rd fastest lap of 56.5. So 1.9 seconds, the #1 Rebellion behind Mike Conway's currently pole-sitting Toyota.
And a lot of that in the first and second sector. The third sector was pretty equal between them all, but the first and second sector was where Conway was able to eke out 2 3/10 of a second between them.
Now, he can't get by the Rebellion at Les Combes. So that's Mike Conway backing out of the lap, and that's the wrecked Dragon Speed car. That's
Dragon Speed, that's Pietro Fittipaldi
it is Pietro Fittipaldi.
That's their LMP1 car, and that's Eau Rouge, I think. That's at the top of the hill there at Radillon. Oh, he's gone in front on.
It goes 6s and 7s.
I didn't want to see that. It looked like the car bottomed, and then not sure low tyre pressures often can do that, and then it started to bounce around, and he just went on straight at that particular moment. That isn't nice.
The reigning V8 World Series champion, which raced in association with WEC last year.
Red flag, obviously, to ensure that Pietro is taken care of correctly and the car and everything cleaned up. So a second stoppage to this session as everybody now comes back to the pits again.
Of course, his family have both been very intimately involved with World Endurance Championship. Father Christian raced in GT racing and raced at Le Mans a number of times, and Emerson was the man who was responsible for taking World Endurance to Brazil for the first couple of races there. So Pietro Fittipaldi, yeah, the car did bottom out. They all are, but it kind of just snaps away from him. And
yeah, but then he didn't turn. That's the thing afterwards. He didn't turn from there. He's offline. That moment in time, it looked like he didn't have steering at some point or something. He wasn't able to get the car moving. Normally, if it bottoms out and moves around, then you actually can still get the car turning in some way, but he wasn't able to do it for whatever reason.
Yeah, it shot straight off. There wasn't even a variation in the line. It all straightened up in the same way that you might imagine if he's got no steering. So we'll wait and see what the report comes back with. Again, everybody heads back to the pit lane for the second time, while our busy marshals rescue Pietro Fittipaldi. So as we are now, who has completed, well, actually very few of the LMP2 cars have actually completed a lap. 3 of them have in LMP2. G-Drive, car number 26, courtesy of Jean-Eric Verne, leads the pack ahead of Ho Pin Tung in the 38 Jackie Chan DC racing car. There's Ben Hanley having a look at the data. And Labour Competition's Julien Canal, car number 50, is currently third fastest in LMP2. Nobody else has set a time. And in P1, Toyota, Rebellion, SMP's number 11, then Dragon Speed's BR1, with Pietro Fittipaldi was 6th fastest, ahead of Ollie Webb in the bike collars.
"16 minutes will remain in this session when it gets under green again, so that it is time, but the time is actually marching on.
Yeah.
And so it will be very tight for these guys that haven't gone out.
Again, in the end, while it would be lovely if you're one of the teams that haven't had a chance to set a competitive time, if time sort of runs out, still, you know, it's a 6-hour race. It's not a 10-lap Formula Ford repechage, so grid position isn't the be-all and the end-all. Fernando Alonso bails out of number 8. So the most leisurely driver change you'll see.
Got a bit of an understeer at turn 9, as he gives a bit of feedback.
Or 12, yeah, 12.
Yes,
9.
Elton Julian, who's team principal at Dragon Speed, he is looking on to the various bits of information. That's his car that's unfortunately in the wall.
Raced in Formula 3000, British Formula 2 as well, I seem to recall. Certainly did race in 3000.
He's a race winner in
British
British
F3.
Formula 3 as well.
And yeah, very successful operation, Dragon Speed. As a startup, he had a very clear strategy of where he wanted to be and when, and so far he has hit all his marks. They brought Nico Lapierre in last year, 2 years ago in European Le Mans Series as kind of figurehead, but also to not just to buy his experience when he was slightly mysteriously let go by Toyota, or surprisingly, let's say, let go by Toyota, but they brought him in and he's really helped with the progress there. SMP Racing's number 11, the big names in that one, Vitaly Petrov and Mikel Alishin, who you see being strapped in. Stefan Sarrazin in 17 with Igor Orochev and Mativos Isakian, 2 youngsters who raced in GT for SMP Racing a couple of years ago in European Le Mans Series, 1 in LMP2, so overall in Paul Ricard in European Le Mans last year, while they were also racing in the V8 Formula Series. Vitaly Petrov, Mikel Alishin sharing the car that hasn't broken down yet, so it's just the 2 of them together, the 2 Russians, with Stefan Sarrazin bringing the experience to the crew of car number 17, which has now made its way back to the team. Unfortunately, nothing else for them to do on track today, so they can now go through the electronics and the electrics and try and find out where it's leaking.
Yeah, the first thing is they need to find out what the problem is, but that car will be in Parc Fermé now, so they'll have to wait till that opens up before they can really look at it and hopefully get it all sorted out for tomorrow.
Henrik Hedman on the left there in the blue jacket, and Ben Hanley on the right-hand side in his blue race suit. They're the other drivers of the number 10 car. And scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you can see the current standings. Toyota, Rebellion, and then the number 11 SMP car. And there is the 17 car back on the flatbed. So one of the 3 BR1 chassis, BR Engineering. Picoles currently 7th fastest after Ollie Webb's had his run.
This is a point for the driver that hasn't driven that is actually quite... I always found this tough because you're waiting and you don't have a definitive point when you know the circuit's going to be opened up, so you've got to sit in the car in case it's a close call, quick call, and it's hot, it's uncomfortable, it's just so that I used to always walk around when I was nervous, and so I'd always pace around, but when I was sort of tied into the car, I couldn't. And at that particular moment in time, the things run through your mind. You've got to keep it calm, keep it focused, keep breathing, and try and keep as cool, physically cool as possible.
So jiggly leg syndrome comes in there.
You see the lights vibrating there as coming across the curb. It's up at the top of the hill at Lake Holm. Coming into the right off the end of the Kemmel Straight and then into that left. And that left curb, you need to get up as much as you can onto the top of it. But if you go too far, you can actually damage the inside edge of the tyre. I tell you from previous experience.
Dindo told you he'd done it, did he?
Yeah. Dindo Capello being my long time fantastic Italian teammate.
Long-suffering teammate, I think was the word you were looking for there. So Fernando Alonso, unsurprisingly, has been the subject of an awful lot of attention in the paddock from the fans. Not too many times you get to a racetrack or a paddock that's as open as this and have a Formula One driver released into the wild.
Yeah, but at the same time, Fernando has been around about this paddock quite a few times as a fan and a spectator. Turned up at Le Mans. In fact, he started Le Mans a few years ago, and I think that whetted his appetite very much to be part of this, and came to the final closing race of the season on a couple of occasions in Bahrain as well, and he's made it very clear. I've known him for quite a long time now, and he made it very clear that he wanted to get this race and the Le Mans under his belt at some point. Clearly not just to do it, he would like to win it, but it's good to see him actually being able to fulfill it.
And that's been sort of, those planets have been aligning for several years. The more surprising announcement a couple of weeks ago, or last 10 days, was that Jenson Button is also going to join Super Season. He's not here this weekend, but he will start his campaign with SMP Racing at Le Mans. And since they have a car with only 2 drivers in at the moment, you imagine that Vitaly Petrov, Mikhail Alishin will be joined by Jenson Button. And that could be a very potent combination indeed. None of them long on sports car racing experience. Vitaly Petrov, the more experienced, most experienced of the trio.
And the only reason that Jensen's not here this weekend is they're actually racing in Fuji.
Yeah.
And so he's with his Super GT campaign. He's in theory they're racing in Fuji. The reason I say that is because Fuji's on the side of Mount Fuji and can be sometimes rain infected.
Louise Beckett is down in the pit lane. I'm sure she's in a garage somewhere where it's not quite so hot and sunny, because race suits aren't the coolest things out. Most tracks that we go to, and actually oftentimes when you come to Spa, a nice race suit is a very useful thing to have. Well, let's get down to the pit lane, catch up with Stefan Sarazan and Louise Beckett.
So Stefan, you've made it back. Tell us what happened.
I lost the engine and the gearbox, so I don't know what's happened. Hydraulic problem, probably. It's a shame, so we'll see what we can do, and let's hope it will be okay tomorrow morning.
Okay, the team have got a lot to do, haven't they? Because the car's not even back in the garage yet.
Yeah, it's a parc fermé, so we need to respect the time, and after the car will come back. But for sure, it's finished for today, so we'll start last of LMP1, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Difficult start, no question about it, but yeah, as he said, hydraulic issue there. The gearbox obviously runs a bit more on that, and as long as they know what it is, they can rectify it. The concern is that they haven't done 6 hours since the beginning of this weekend, and so to make sure it's a one-off problem and not a recurring problem.
And of course, you know, with the paddle shifts, so much of the gearbox is controlled by electronics. So you have an engine ECU, you have a gearbox GCU. They should be aligned and talk to each other. But you know what happens? You've got your computer, you've got your printer. They should talk to each other. They often do. But there'll be one day when you really need something where one won't talk to the other at all. And that's just a computer and a printer. Yeah, Graham's holding his hand up there in recognition. Yeah, we've all been there where an electronic device that should do exactly what it did for the last 50 times doesn't. And unfortunately, that might be exactly the issue with that BR1 for SMP Racing.
Yeah, it might be. They did say hydraulic, though, as well, and hydraulic is...
Hydraulic isn't going to kill the engine, necessarily. Well, let's get back down to the pit lane. And hear from Francois Perrodo, who's in the number 28 TDS racing car, shared with Mathieu Vazevière and Loïc Duval.
Well, Francois Perrodo has been getting in the zone for quite a while, and it just keeps getting longer for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, although at the moment it's not really the priority. We just hope that Pietro is okay. Yeah, sure. So the first red flag was due to a technical issue, but clearly this is not too good. So we just hope it's fine, and then we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is very much a disjointed qualifying session, so we'll have to just bide our time and wait. At least it's not hailing, hosing it down. The fog's not rolling down. You see all the, I'm tempting fate, aren't I? That's just appalling. Everybody's now going to come looking for me when tomorrow's miserable. As we talked about with Jenson Button, the weather is very wet and misty in Fuji. Albert, let's have a look inside the Bicoles car.
Yeah, Tom Dillman there just opening up the belts and getting out for a second.
Well, clearly on the closed loop between race control and the teams, they've been told something that we're not seeing on screen about barrier repairs or what have you.
Possibly not, possibly it's just getting far too hot.
Or needs a break for comfort.
I'll let you speculate.
That's not a good idea. That leads us into all
wind
sorts
picked up a little bit. I'm just cutting you off there and moving swiftly on. The wind has picked up a wee bitty.
Flick it up onto the... No, I'm going to use a new thing. Let's see what WeatherWeck, the app, tells me. Or the website. How exciting.
Oh, we know that it's definitely hot and sunny, and it's got a bit of wind here.
Even though I logged in the other day, it now wants my login and password. That's really not funny. Okay, so I can't tell. So you're going to have to flick the telly screen over. Skies are blue. Le Soleil brille. That's all I have.
Yeah, well, if you want to know officially,
no
it
nuage.
Is 20 degrees air temperature because of that wind, and it's got a wee bit of a chill factor from it. But track temperature, it says 25. I think in reality is probably Louise, if she puts her hand on the ground, will attest it's a little bit more than that. But the very good thing is humidity is only 35%.
Yeah.
And I think it's only been 35% of the time I've been to Spa in my career, and the first time I was here was 1988, where it's actually not been raining. So it's good to see that it's a low humidity and for the whole weekend as well.
Well, my first race here was the Grand Prix in 1986, which I think Prost and Senna battled and Prost won. And I seem to recall it was quite warm and sunny then as well, actually, which I was most surprised by. View inside the car, I'm afraid can't really see very much, and it's quite dark. Inside number 26 G-Drive car, G-Drive remaining with number 26 that they've been loyal to over the last few years. Another Orica 07 chassis and Gibson engine power plant. The Gibson engine used in all the LMP2 cars. Wherever you buy your chassis, the engine will come from Gibson Engineering. So we have Orica, Dallara, Alpine and Ligier represented on the grid. There's Stefan Sarrazin at SMP. Well, my French isn't good enough to pick up any interesting tittle-tattle out of that, I'm afraid. Graham Goodwin's looking equally nonplussed. We'll find a way to plug him in for tomorrow. At the moment, he's just shaking and nodding, and that doesn't work on radio and doesn't work on television either, unless we have a booth cam, and that really is not where we're going.
Just going to ask Graham what he thinks of it so far, because we've obviously had the GTE Pro and the GTE AM, and now the first sort of little bit of a smattering of a look of what's happening with LMP. What's your sort of first impressions of Super Season 2018-19?
It's a great-looking grid. It's a happy paddock, which is, not always been the case at the start of a season.
Why are you looking at me when you said that? It's a bit hurtful.
No, I wasn't looking at you. You're the only thing to look at in here. But it is a good-looking grid. I think it's surprised a lot of people, particularly some of the cynics that said that in the aftermath of a couple of pullouts from LMP1 Hybrid that the championship was in trouble. It clearly isn't. It's a real shame to see a disjointed qualifying here in LMP. It's concerning that we've had a big incident there for the Dragon Speed car. We'll wait and find out what's actually happened there. We're not seeing anything that you're not seeing, by the way, at the moment, so we're as much in the dark as you are. But you know, look, this place, one of the best places in the world to watch a race. We're in one of the worst places to watch it, in a closed room with a big glass window. It is beautiful out there. I think we're going to get a big crowd here tomorrow for the race. They're going to see great racing, I think, in all classes. Whether or not we see a good race at the very front of the grid is a different matter. I think this is a big experiment, isn't it, Alan? This is a brave new world in LMP1. A lot of changes in the rule sets. We don't know how that's going to pan out. There's a lot we don't know here. And I think possibly for the first time in a racing generation, the rule makers and the organisers don't really know either.
I think that it's obviously very difficult trying to make sure that you balance out factories and hybrids and non-hybrids and the different technology and things, and I'm sure we'll see it evolving as we go forward. But the thing that really stood out for me was that GTE battle, because I knew that we would have a close battle, but I didn't expect it to be as close as it was between the Porsche and also the Ford. But I was also a little bit surprised, if I'm very honest with you, that the Ferrari was so far away, because that's an updated car from last year, and I didn't think it would be so far off the pace. I'm just not sure whether they were, because of the limited tyres available, very much looking towards their tyre life for the race as opposed to maybe necessarily the point for pole.
Well, they've not got the record they've got the WEC by accident at Ferrari. The Evo pack, not quite the pack as it was intended. In balance of performance, they lost a little bit of front downforce. The little winglets, the turning vanes, if you like, on the front of the car were lost in after the wind tunnel test. But they will be there without a shadow of a doubt. They've got, what is it, 5 out of 6 manufacturer titles in the WEC in its six-season history. They'll be right there. Fernando Alonso clearly there is enjoying his afternoon.
Well, you said that. They finished first and second last year here at this race, so, you know, they've got a bit of a feel for it and an understanding for it. So I'm sure they'll be a little bit closer tomorrow. But I think as well, with the new cars, when you're talking Aston Martin and talking BMW, it's a case of, right, toe in the water and see where we are. But their eyes are definitely on Le Mans as opposed to on Spa.
Well, the interesting thing, I guess, is not just how big the gaps were beyond the top four, but how small the gaps were between the top four, but also the fact, Alan, those two cars, the Ford and the Porsche, the only two cars that are effectively presented here in more or less exactly the same form we saw last year. So they've got lots and lots of relevant data. That's going to be certainly something that plays to them here at Spa this weekend. Are people playing games? Well, you know what? It wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last time. But I think they've got some work to do. That was impressive speed from the Fords, and a very impressive speed as well for the Porsches.
Yeah, I think that by what I understand, Michelin have made a big step forward with the tyre, and so therefore it wasn't necessarily just car development. Now, there is always car development, but there's tyre development. Pretty much everybody's sitting on that particular, well, in fact, everybody is sitting on that particular tyre now in GT Pro, and it's a case of, you know, I think it'll be who draws first blood, because the championship will come down to who loses the least points.
Yep.
It'll be all those little points for pole and things that I think could make the difference, and that's only going to be found out when you get to Le Mans 2019.
You mentioned the step forward from Michelin. There's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that's the case. You do wonder, in terms of what has been available to those teams. Remember, it's 2 of the 3 mid-engine cars that were dominated that qualifying session. The front-engine cars were the ones struggling for pace. Maybe that's a factor. Speculation, but it's happened before.
So you see here again, this is the shunt for Pietro Fittipaldi coming up the hill as he goes into a Rouge. Tremendously quick corner, and unfortunately a tremendously quick hit.
Well, the good news that we're seeing this is that we know now from the scene that Pietro Fittipaldi has been put on a stretcher and put in an ambulance, so he is now on the way to the medical centre. So the fact that we're seeing replays is always a good thing when you're trying to analyse what's happened. I have no further information, but he has been stretchered from the car. And of course, the very first thing the medical crew do is stabilise the driver. Make sure that when they extract him from the car, they aren't doing any damage to anything that might be damaged. So he's on his way to the medical centre. You saw the ambulance leaving, so we will bring you updates as we get them. Work going on the tyre wall. They'll also, of course, have to rescue the Dragon Speed number 10 car and bring that back down to the paddock. But the good news is that Pietro Fittipaldi is on his way to medical attention, or more medical attention. The Dragon Speed car on a flatbed. Looks as though the tyre wall's just to the left of there. There you go. They're reinstating the tyre wall. They'll put the belting across the outside of it as well. And there's the zebra sleeves that Louise was talking about. The herd of zebras down at Rebellion, and I can't think of a better description for it. There's nothing else that it looks like so much as they've got zebra print on. Is this going to set a trend? Are we going to see leopard print race suits for mechanics arriving? Maybe, who knows. So more tyres coming in. So, of course, the reason you use a tyre is because of the big gap between the front and the back of it. It allows lots of compression, and they have that sort of springy resilience as well, which all helps absorb energy. Have a little earwig in the Bicollis garage. Allow Graham to get his headset on, because we're reduced down to only one McNish in the booth now. It's not the one you're used to hearing from either.
It's the taller one.
I tell you what, we've got the taller McNish in. I think we might get him on headset in a moment or so. He's bound to speak at least as much. Finley is waving away the headset.
He's had his instructions. It's okay. That one's not linked up.
Yeah, he can listen. He's decided he's on listen only.
He's been fabulous company.
Wise to say, absolutely. So the tyres. Did I see Eduardo down there? Often you will do.
Yes,
Often
indeed.
you will see Eduardo down at the scene, just to make sure that he's happy with everything.
The Spa-Francorchamps staff well drilled in repairing that tyre wall down through the years.
And Eduardo has one and only one criterion of whether or not he's run a good race meeting. And that one criterion was, did he keep everybody as safe as is humanly possible? And in the end, you know, that's what you want from your race director. Yes, sometimes, occasionally, we talked, actually, he and I talked a little bit yesterday about the wet safety car start at Le Mans a couple of years ago, and he said, you know, there was a bit of criticism, oh, let them race. He said, but actually a driver came up to him during the off-season, towards the end of last season, and said, yeah, really appreciated that you were putting our safety above all else, above, you know, the show or the razzmatazz or the purity or something. There, you know, everybody's got families and you know, they're not just
human beings.
Things in cars. Yeah, they're actual genuine people.
We've moved on a long way in recent decades in terms of the safety of our sport. No one's in a hurry to make this sport completely vanilla.
No, exactly.
But you know, nobody wants to see anybody hurt either. We did a little Le Mans last year, the scrutineering process, which goes on for a day and a half in the centre of Le Mans, where we get the first opportunity to see all the teams together, all the drivers together, and we try various ways to cover this. And last year we asked a little bit of kind of keyword questions, and one of the key phrases was Eduardo Freitas, and the reply that we got most often, that was printable, was was basically firm but fair, consistent. Yeah. And you know what? If you've ever sat in a driver's briefing with Eduardo, and I've sat in a few, he's very clear on what the rules are that he holds dear. And you know, if you'll get somebody coming after a session, you know, on the record to moan about track limits and blah blah, there's no doubt whatsoever. Before you go out there, that's the way that Eduardo sees it.
We are still repairing the tire wall. The car has been charged. The driver has been evacuated to the medical center to undergo some further checks. We are currently repairing the tire barrier and cleaning the runoff. Make sure that if someone else has to use the area, it's not slippery. I do apologize for the delay. Believe us, we are doing the best we can.
Well, I've seen Eduardo run races in the past where we were going, okay, this is never happening. There's not the slightest chance this race will ever happen. The World Touring Car race weekend in Turkey a few years ago, there was such a monumental downpour that in the first corner, there was a lake that was 6 meters across and probably the better part of a meter deep. 2 hours later, we were racing.
Yep.
I talked to him afterwards about it. I said, I have no idea how on earth you did that. And he said, basically everybody in Turkey in the entire circuit just came out, swept and swept and swept until they got rid of the water. And I thought, well, you know, there's a man whose determination to allow the racing to continue, you know, that plays part in all his decisions. Have a waved yellow to clear up a local problem, even a tyre barrier repair under a slow zone now, which we can do, rather than safety car it for an hour. You know, and particularly on a long track like this, or you know, especially at Le Mans, you have these new systems or newer systems that we now have to allow as much racing to continue for as long as possible.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Fuji last year, and that I thought was an exemplary example of how to actually get as much a track action as you possibly can within the prevailing conditions. Yeah. And was it disjointed? Yes, it was. Did we run the full distance? No, we didn't. But boy, everybody worked really, really hard to see that we got an event there. You know, I was part of the fabled race that never was in 2013 at Fuji. Yeah. That was no fun for absolutely anybody. There might be someone else in the booth that might have been part of that as well. And you know what? There might well be a very different perspective from a driver's point of view. It's lucky we've got one here. We can ask that question of.
Yeah, we've given a microphone that doesn't work, so that's fine. Yeah. We can talk about it, not too.
It was a fewer request.
But
you know, for the perspective of an onlooker, with or without a microphone, it was a great example of what you can do when everybody works together as a team, and the way in which the field was allowed to get back onto speed in a controlled fashion without reverting to use of the safety car was, I think, one of the best examples I've seen. I've spoken to Eduardo about it later. He was race director in Asian Le Mans Series at the end of that season. He still wasn't satisfied he'd done quite enough. I don't think I understand what more he could have done.
No, but that's a great indication of how seriously he takes all of this. Is no matter how perfectly everything went from the outside, he's still not quite satisfied that everything was perfect, because like anyone else, you know, even if you win a race, you sit back going, didn't do that very well, and I made a mess of that, and we made a mess of the other, and so yeah, there's always that.
We've teased him a little. I'd love to hear what Alan says about those two things. One is Eduardo, you know, as an operator, and two is those two Fuji races, the race that never was, and indeed last year, as to how he felt that went, perhaps from a driver's perspective. So we're going to do the two
swap the headsets, yes. Swap our headsets around, and we can get Alan back on the commentary headset, and Graham can resume his position as the bearded wonder.
Yeah, so what was the question, sir?
How are you? The race, the two-lap race at Fuji, the very, very wet race, 2013. As a driver, was there anybody that was...
I've ever made in my entire career.
Was there anybody that was happy with the way it ended?
No, nobody was happy. We went there to race, and we went there to race for a championship as well as the actual Fuji 6 hours. And, you know, in that condition, it was torrential, and it was torrential for everyone. People crashed coming out of the pits going on the warming up lap. The safety car was quicker than the actual race cars because of the design. And so it was a very, very tricky one. But Tom Christensen and Loic Duval were my teammates, and Loic started the race. And he was the poor guy that only drove, and he was the one that had to sit in the car when it was red flagged. He was the one that was also having to go back out to the car to warm it up, because only the driver could warm up the car at that particular moment in time, and the regulations. And while Tom and I had quite a lots of cups of tea and just stacked up points to our championship campaign. So there was two sides really. There was the crikey me, this is a huge risk race, so therefore as anything can happen in it, then you could lose points towards a world championship. And so therefore there was an element of, in one way, you want to control that, and by not racing, that was it. but it was not our decision. And then on the other side of it, we went there to actually do a race, but it was unsatisfactory. The one thing that was really, I thought, fantastic was that the organizer, basically Gerard Neveu, cajoled all the manufacturers and teams to say, right, come on, the fans have sat in the grandstand, and they sat there all the time, open things up and actually speak to them.
Well, there is Eduardo. You just saw him leading there and chatting on the walkie-talkie.
He's going to check, is he going to check what the barrier condition is like, I'm sure?
Yeah, absolutely. He wants to sign it off with his own eyes. He started as a marshal in Portugal at Estoril, and then became the head of the marshals at Estoril, race director there, and has moved on from World Touring Car Championship to the World Endurance Championship. So it is a little bit of a hold, bit of a delay for everybody. But again, it's the same deal, you know, when he gets back into the pit lane, then we will be quite likely in a position where we're ready to start a countdown.
Yeah, Jasmine Jafar.
Yeah.
Kind of happy chappy.
Do you know what? Sort of that seems to have been his demeanour in pretty much everything he's ever raced. I've seen a lot of him from the outside, not actually met him before.
No, he's a very jovial guy.
Yeah.
And he's extremely quick as well. He's got quite a bit of experience of different things now, Jazz.
Yeah.
Came through the single-seater ladder predominantly through the UK, actually, in British Formula 3, when British Formula 3 was
still a place to be. Yeah.
Place, and then went across to the
GP2, did World Series by Renault.
World Series. There's, I think, with the car back now, and also the barriers being repaired, and Eduardo Freitas out there, and I would suspect that it's not going to be too long. In fact, the estimated time of resuming is 16:28, so in 1.5 minutes. And so Louise Beckett down the pit lane is probably going to have to prepare again as things move on. Louise, is there a bit of action down there?
Yeah, that's what I was just calling through to you. There's quite a bit of activity. I hadn't seen the timing.
I estimate we can go green at 28. I estimate we can go green at 28.
So I don't know how long that is until 28 is, because I'm not near a timing screen at the moment.
1 minute and 10 seconds.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, it's going to be a quick warm-up of the cars as well, because I don't, you know, it's not as if everybody had them always warmed up. As you can see there, the repair to the tyre barrier, the section of black tyre, but also then the sort of front section's done.
Yep.
Tyre going on to the Rebellion.
Yeah, so the tyres have been off in the tyre warmers. And as you can see, Bruno Senna ready to take the car out. Gianni did the opening foray in that #1 Rebellion. Everything fired up and ready to roll. And of course, the only cars with engines that won't be started up will be the Toyotas, because they roll off under electric hybrid power. And it's only when they get above the 80 kilometres that the ICE cuts in. So 8, the first car. Fernando Alonso did the first stint in that car. And the #1 car of Rebellion Racing right behind. I'm slightly surprised the #7 Toyota didn't get in there as well. You might want both your cars to be as clear of traffic as possible.
It's not going to be 16:28 because the course car is still coming back round, so it won't be back till 16:29, so I'd expect 16:30 before another 1.5 minutes as the Toyota starts to position itself, and he'll have to fall in behind the Rebellion. I think you see it out in front.
Information to the pit lane will open on a short call. Information to the pit lane will open on a short call.
So essentially, the moment you see the was it a McLaren or a Panamera, whatever, as soon as you see it coming into the pit lane, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. It's not a Panamera, is it? A Panamera is the 4-door 928. It's the Cayenne.
It's going to be a very short call, is what you're trying to say. As soon as the safety car comes into the pit lane, and Eduardo Freitas
Yeah.
Is back up in his control booth. And then we've got 16 minutes where I would have said half, in fact 10 of the cars of the 18 have already been out and done a lap, and the others have not. So some have got to do 2 drivers through in that 8 minutes, and you're talking about you know, 6 minutes per driver, so it's going to be quite tight. They've got to get on with it. And then the ones that have already done 1 timed lap, a good timed lap, in terms of the 2 Toyotas and roughly the Rebellions, then they'll be able to switch across.
Well, Neil Jarney out of the number 1 Rebellion, and he looks fairly happy with the way things have gone. So here we go, 16 minutes and counting now as we go green, resuming qualifying for LMP1 and LMP2, and it is the number 8 Toyota hits the ground running ahead of the number 1 Rebellion, Bruno Senna in the Rebellion. It's Kaz Nakajima in the 8 Toyota, and Kamui Kobayashi. Now, both of them did a lot of laps in FP3 in their respective Toyotas, 8 and 7. And the reason for that is that they wanted to dial themselves fully in warmer conditions this morning, ready for qualifying. Now, you would think that the second of the Toyotas, and that's Kamui Kobayashi, will try and hustle his way by Bruno Senna in the Rebellion before they start a quick lap. Honestly, Bruno may well let him.
He may well not.
Everybody else leaving the pit lane, so Gustavo Menezes in the second Rebellion, the number 3 car. Michael Alishin we saw sitting patiently in the number 11 SMP racing car. Number 10 Dragon Speed car won't continue the session, nor will the other SMP car that stopped under Stefan Sarazan.
So on board with the number 1 Bruno Senna Rebellion. And I saw Andre Lotterer in his civvies, local boy. Mum lives here, round about here. So he kind of classifies it, even though he's officially German, kind of classifies it as a home race.
I thought it was local to Fuji as well.
He's
local to everywhere
places.
You take.
Local to Northampton when he was a Jaguar reserve driver, test driver in Formula 1.
His last Formula 1 outing came here, didn't it? It was called up for Caterham.
Correct. It's now crossing line to start the lap, 14 minutes to go. Drop down into La Source. And the Toyota hits spot, a little bit of struggle in retraction, it was the rear of the car that was moving around a little bit there. Drops down towards Eau Rouge.
Yet to leave the pit lane, by the way, G-Drive and the number 38 Jackie Chan car, the top 2 in LMP2, and it's not that they are sitting on their time and not going out, because their second drivers haven't set a time, so they don't have a time to sit on.
Yeah, but they'll be waiting until this sort of flurry of activity dies down. They've only got 1 driver to go through, and so therefore they'll wait maybe 2 or 3 minutes and then send their driver out. Should be okay, as long as the guy hits the spot, gets his laps in, but then on the limited number of tyre sets, then chances are you need to hit it on the first lap. You've got no other choice.
Yeah, no messing around now. So TDS have gone out, so too Racing Team Netherlands. 31 Dragon Speed car with Pastor Maldonado, all these LMP2 cars, and Cineotech Alpine and the 37 Jackie Chan car, which are right at the tail of qualifying, having none of them set a complete lap at speed. Those guys have all also left the pit lane. But according to our timing screen at least, number 26 and number 38, the fastest P2 cars, are yet to leave the pits.
Toyota's there or thereabouts, Rebellion a little bit off in the middle sector. And no, definitely Toyota 7 is definitely there. Kobayashi is in the car at the moment and is absolutely on it. He's the first one. This is a car we're actually riding on board with now as he dips through Blanchimont, coming in towards the bus stop chicane.
Nakajima is quicker in the second sector than Kobayashi. Kobayashi was a whistle quicker in the first. And Nakajima gets to the line with a 54.781.
Wow. And the Kobayashi, a 54.488, 3/10 quicker than Nakajima. So that car is sitting with an average of 154.583. The teammates 154.962. So it's Toyota definitely 1-2 in the grid. I think that's a pretty clear statement right now.
Now both Rebellions are 2/10 off Senna and Menezes of the fastest lap that the first drivers in the car put in. So might be that they have not put fresher rubber on the car, looking towards the slightly more longer-term goal of getting the car to the end as the best of the privateers. SMP's number 11 goes up to 5th ahead of Baikoles, so that's Elysian ahead of Tom Dillman. And then the number 4, that's the number 4 Baikoles team. And then in LMP2, the 26G Drive car has still not left the pits. Jasman Jafar jumps up to 2nd for Jackie Chan DC Racing. 28 TDS car in 3rd place. You're looking at it there with Mathieu Vazivière. G-Drive heading out of the pit lane now. And we're showing a car stopped on track. No, we're not. It went from stopped to out.
Yeah, but that would be at the end of the pit lane, where he had stopped for the tyre check. So they want to check that the correct tyres are on the car. It might have been something related to that as he dropped out. So everything under control now. The two Toyotas, I think, are just going to roll it back towards the pits. And then after that, Jasmine Jafar there in the 37 Jota Sport Run DC Chan car. Front bounces a lot under braking.
Yeah.
Now the driver will feel that, not quite as much as it visually looks. He will feel it as a sort of movement in the car, but this car is definitely very stiffly sprung across the front axle.
I remember asking you the same thing about some of the early open Audi prototypes that seem to have a lot of chatter down the hangar straight, and you go, no, can't feel anything. But to the naked eye, definitely looked like they were bouncing a lot. Toyotas are in the pits.
That's very insensitive, that was the reason behind it.
So is the number 3 and number 11 Rebellion. Maybe it was just an insensitive question. TDS in the pit lane with Mathieu Vazivière. He's going to hand over to Francois Perraudot with 9 minutes to go. Has anybody else done the entire session? No, I don't think so. Gte Vandergarde in the 29 Racing Team Netherlands car, looking here at Nico Lapierre. Ah, no, he's been in the whole time, Nico Lapierre. Cinetic Alpine go top of the pile. So, Louise, we've got a couple of driver changes, but Cinetic Alpine, Nico Lapierre, I think, started, so he's got to make a change.
Yeah, and also the 37, I don't know, they've just done the driver change. I don't know who's stepped in, but yeah, still quite a few to set their times.
Actually, no P2 cars have yet set a second driver time, so it's going to get busy.
It's predominantly the P2 cars that were in the pits because they decided generally as a group weight as Toyota are both outdone their both their laps and in. A pretty quick lap time, I've got to say, by Kobayashi there to get the fastest lap on the second. He was second driver in that particular car. Now it's a turn of the P2s. It's close at the front though, because G-Drive is only less than 1/10 of a second behind. And it's just a smidge behind Lapierre there.
Andrea Pizzitola is at the wheel of the orange number 26 G-Drive car. And again, that car, like Cinetic Alpine, nobody has done a driver change, but 37 Jackie Chan DC Racing have now handed their car over to Nabo Jeffrey, and TDS to Francois Perraudot as least documented, so they are on an outlap. 7 minutes, they've got time to do an outlap and get 2 flying laps in. Senna has stepped out of the number 1 Rebellion car. That is 3rd fastest ahead of Gustavo Menezes' number 3 Rebellion. So Toyota, Rebellion. 11 is SMP, 4 is Baikoles, and the number 10 SMP car has not set a second driver time. So there'll be a degree of humming and hawing in the steward's room, but essentially the Dragon Speed And SMP cars will start at the back of the P1 field. Into the pit lane, Nico Lapierre for Senior Tech. This is a flying lap, or building up to speed flying lap for 38. I think this is a flying lap, for their second qualifying driver.
Yeah, it is, as he comes down into the bus stop. Now gets it stopped, turned in over the curb. Quite nice line, actually. Front reacts well as he turns left. And drops a wheel just onto the AstroTurf from the outside. Don't think he lost anything. Be on with you at 2:02.986. This is lap.
Driver is Frenchman Gabriel Aubry, sharing with Ho Pintung, who did the first qualifying run, and Monegasque Stéphane Richelmy.
He's 3/10 off his teammate there, who was on the first one. We didn't see whether it was the same tyre or not.
No. But because they've been out twice, Nico Lapierre's had put 2 heat cycles before he actually did a lap into the car. Wouldn't be at all surprised to find that when we get out there with Pierre Thirier now in this car, it hasn't got much left, and 2 or 3 tenths is not an awful lot to lose on a track this long, 7 kilometres.
Splendid sunshine there with the forest in the background.
I should give you a Monegasque fact in a moment.
Please.
Last Monegasque to score Formula 1 points was?
Well, last weekend.
Exactly, and before him...
It was, I will come back to you. Olivier Beretta.
No, not in Formula 1. It was in the Monaco Grand Prix in 1948, the second ever Grand Prix of the modern era. So, since 1948, no Monegasque driver has scored points in Formula 1 until last weekend.
Now, you do realise there's probably only about 7,000 Monegasques, so it's not as if they've got a huge gene pool to sort of drag from, and they've got a motorsport circuit.
Yes, they do.
So they do have a track.
Yeah, there you
it's
go.
only available a certain number of days per year. Now, this track, and Belgium have produced a few, and they've definitely got a fantastic track here.
Yeah, they have, absolutely one of the all-time classics. And one of the reasons it's so good to come to Spa is not just the history, but the reason it's a classic track is because it produces good racing, and it still does. And it produces quick qualifying laps as well. Pierre Thirier starting his for Senior Tech Alpine and edging a little closer. G-Drive's Andrea Pizzitola. Car in 4th place at the moment in the class. Roberto Gonzalez in the 31 Dragon Speed car. Oh, here he is. He's 5th at the moment. And that is the car that's in the Mexican colours, rather than the white with the blue stars, or the blue background of the stars up the nose like the number 10 car has. That's your traditional Dragon Speed cars. These are the traditional Gonzalez colours.
Gonzalez has got a good first sector going. Talking about that car.
Pastor Maldonado, the Venezuelan, did the first stint in the qualifying, and the 3rd driver is Nat Berton, whose other day job is racing in World Touring Cars.
Middle stint here by Gonzalez was a wee bit off, so it's not going to be leapfrogging him up onto quickest, I don't think.
3rd fastest at the moment. And the 38 Jackie Chan car has pitted, currently 4th in the class. And now the 38 car goes to 3rd in class, despite the fact that it's in the pit lane. How's it done that? Somebody's lost a lap, but it hasn't come up on our timing screen.
But right now it's the Alpine that's leading, Thierry at the wheel, trying to get his lap time in. And then after that we've got Pizzitola in the G-Drive car, then Jackie Chan DC Racing 3rd and 4th, then Dragon Speed in 5th with Gonzalez, who we just followed. This is a Collis car coming across the line now.
That's Ollie Webb.
The wheel, yeah. And he's just gone quicker than who? The chap that was at the wheel. I don't know who started
Tom
that
Dillman
car.
didn't
Tom
he?
Dillman,
Yeah.
yes, that's correct, because we saw Tom unplugging and getting out.
So flying lap here from Pierre Thirier again.
It's a dropped 6/10 in the middle sector from what roughly the sort of time they could, but this is a good lap actually by TDA. Good, nice, tidy lap. 2:03.334 was his lap time. 2:02.986 is the quickest of the drivers going second.
He's on it for another lap, isn't he?
He's trying to, also he'll get this slipstream of the Racing Team Netherlands up ahead. It just depends whether he's actually going to get caught. And I think he will, because Racing Team Netherlands is doing their own qualifying.
Yeah.
You know, Van Aert is at the wheel of this one, and his view as well. I'm on the track to qualify as well, mate.
Exactly right. So Fritz van Aert ahead of him. He might get past him down into Rivage. Minute left, so these laps will count. Those guys up at Les Combes won't get any more, but Gonzalez might.
Yeah, Gonzalez definitely with 1 minute to go crossing the line, so this will be one more lap if he wants to take it. He goes a little bit quicker, but he doesn't necessarily put himself up in position. To do that, he needs a good 6-7 tenths of a second, though, to be able to do that. 5 tenths of a second, sorry. Drops down through, and a long, long climb up. So right now, you're sort of building yourself up for it. You're looking at that car and you know that this is your last lap. The radio call will have came from the engineer to tell you exactly that. So you know you got to get it all hooked up, but I don't think it's going to be possible for him there just due to that traffic. This was the Racing Team Netherlands car we spoke about just a wee second ago, Mark.
Yeah, Fritz van Aert, boss of Jumbo Supermarkets. And he sponsors a race day at Zandvoort in a couple of weeks, where the star attraction will be some Dutch guy who's in Formula One. Not sure. Young kid. Might have a future, possibly.
Yeah.
Checker flag is out, so Fritz van Aert takes the flag, and they are currently 7th, ahead of the Labour competition Ligier. What about Alpine? Well, Signatech Alpine Matmut, Pierre Thirier at the wheel. That is the fastest car at the moment, but Toyota's number 7 crew look as though they have wrapped up the LMP1 pole position. And in the LMP1 non-hybrid battle, it is a 1-2 for Rebellion, number 3 ahead of number 1. Toyota number 7 is ahead of Toyota number 8. Signatech Alpine in LMP2 ahead of G-Drive and the 2 Jackie Chan cars. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's Mike Conway, teammates, and close chase to the line, trying to go around the outside of the Ligier, and that's going to compromise his pace, and there was really no need for any of that. Well, there we go. Checker flag is out.
Oh, I like the face-off. This is a face-off between the two of them. And
you go, no, you go, no, you go.
Yeah, but the lap was completely compromised for both anyway. I actually think the Ligier was probably trying to go to the pits.
Well, don't forget that Gonzalez caught the Ligier going up the Kemmel Straight, or was catching him, and took to the end of the lap to actually be in a position where he was trying to get by. So from one of the fastest to the slowest car in the field, not that much of a gap. Jose Maria Lopez in the middle there, with the number 7 Toyota, Mike Conway and Kamui Kobayashi on pole position. And Louise Beckett is down at Toyota. Ex-Toyota driver Nico Lapierre celebrating a P2 pole.
It's all smiles here in Toyota. Great performance from the number 7.
Yeah, just tried to put 2 good laps together between me and Kamui, and yeah, good enough for pole. 1 point to the start of the super season, so so that's good. And we had a few poles last year, but didn't quite convert them to wins. So we'll make sure we convert some wins this year, and it's a good start anyway.
So how's the car handling out there? Obviously, well, you've got pole, but for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's going to still be tricky with the amount of tyres we have, and the amount of double stints and possibly a triple stint that we'll have to do. So yeah, it won't be easy, but and I'm sure the privateers will keep us on our toes. So yeah, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, they need to work hard to start the season with a lead, because, Alan, it's always better when you have points in the bag rather than having to chase people all the time.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. You need to try and score points here. You don't win championships necessarily in the first few races, but you can make life very, very difficult for you.
Yeah. Whoever stands on the top step of the podium in all 4 classes on Saturday afternoon here in Spa-Francorchamps will be 1 step ahead of the opposition in the longest sports car racing season ever. So Toyota 1-2 ahead of Rebellion 3-4, SMP Racing and Bicoles 5-6 in a fractured qualifying session, and Cinetec Alpine ahead of G-Drive and both Jackie Chan DC racing cars in LMP2, followed by Dragon Speed's P2 car, TDS, Racing Team Netherlands and Labra Competition. And behind them, Ford ahead of Porsche in GTE Pro, and Dempsey Proton on the AM class pole.
Were you just having a chat with your teammates there? You must be pleased with that.
Yeah, very good. I mean, we have a very tough weekend so far, but we improved the car a lot for the qualifying, so we are very pleased. Pierre did a really good job. It was tight because it was very special qualifying. You know, we didn't have so much time in the end to settle up, but in the end, pole position is a good start of the season.
It's not bad, is it?
It is, it is. Thank you.
A very smiley Nico Lapierre, Cinetec Alpine. Crikey, I don't think I've ever fallen over that one before. Ending up on the P2 pole at a sunny Spa-Francorchamps, where qualifying started with the GT cars. New names, new faces, and some familiar lineups in the frame. And beautiful traffic conditions. The new BMW M8 split between 2 cars. One went quick, the other one struggled. In the AM class, Porsche challenged, but Aston Martin ended up very close to the top of the pile. Pedrolami and Paul Dalla in the 98 car, just being held off by the 77 Dempsey Proton car. Christian Reed and Matt Campbell doing the qualifying there. So they start on the GTE AM class. In the Pro category, 2 Porsches chased 2 Fords. And the better of the Porsches, the number 1 car. Richard Leitz and Jimmy Bruni ended up in 3rd fastest behind the Fords. 66 car, Stefan Mucker, Ollie Pla and Billy Johnson having to give best to their teammates Andy Preo, Harry Tingle, and their 3rd driver, Tony Kanaan.
Cars went 1 fastest, went 1.3 seconds fast.
Into the LMP session with P1 and P2 cars and a whole host of new P1 cars with which to delight the crowd. Confirmation from the teams there that the track was much quicker than in free practice, but Pietro Fittipaldi brought out the first red flag with his Dragon Speed BR1 getting away from him at Eau Rouge. In fact, that was the 2nd red flag. We'd already had a red flag for 1 car stopping. That was an SMP racing car. Pietro Fittipaldi on his way to hospital near Liège for further treatment. And then in the LMP2 category, battle between our firm favourites. Jackie Chan DC Racing's 38 car in 3rd, 26 second for G-Drive, but Cinetec Alpine claiming pole position with the number 36 machine. Their talisman, Nico Lapierre, again pulling out a big result with Pierre Thirier, his teammate. Rebellion went 4th and 3rd in LMP1. Rebellion back in P1. And their number 1 car, Neil Jarni, Bruno Senna doing the driving, Andre Lotra doing the spectating, the 3rd driver in that car. Number 8 Toyota went 2nd fastest, but pole for the first race of the super season goes to Toyota. Number 7 goes to Mike Conway and Kamui Kobayashi. And that is it for qualifying at Spa-Francorchamps. A beautiful day and another in prospect for tomorrow. There's no such thing as a bad sports car race at Spa, and in beautiful conditions with a packed field, it can only be a good one. Make it a date in your calendar. Join Louise Beckett, Alan McNish, Graham Goodwin and me, Martin Haven, with the World Endurance TV crew. Saturday, May the 5th, for the first race of Super Season. We get underway at 13:30 local time. But for now, may the 4th be with you.
Thank you.